How about that for a day of hockey? First at the World Junior Championship, Team USA wins over Sweden for the bronze medal, which there's no Kraken tied to that other than the US. Then second, Team Canada, aka the team captained by Shane Wright, wins the gold medal also in overtime over Czechia. And then, of course, to cap it all off, there's the reason we're all here. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Seattle Kraken win their third in a row, making a statement in Toronto, beating the Maple Leafs for the first time in franchise history, 5-1. Now, this wasn't the first game this season that I felt has been a real statement win for this team. The other one that I said that about was that game in Vegas in late November that I felt was the first big statement by this team that they were for real this season, even though to that point they'd already had a fantastic month of November and would go on to win another couple of games after that. And while you could make an argument for a couple of other games, certainly the one just before this in Edmonton to also be a bit of a statement, that one may be more a statement that you can't just come into our house and beat us around and get away with it. This game against the Leafs might be their best win yet. And I'm not just saying that because it's the Leafs, and as I've said a number of times, in a lot of ways they're kind of the Cowboys of the NHL with a giant media following and all that. This isn't a Winnipeg Jets, there's nothing better than beating the Leafs type of situation. They're not a team that's in our conference, much less our division, so it doesn't really matter all that much, other than the fact that over the last couple of months, outside of maybe the Boston Bruins, they've been the best team in the NHL. Okay, I could hear an argument for the Hurricanes also being better than them over that span, but the point is, they are one of the very few best teams in the league, and to go into their house on the East Coast on the other side of the continent and come out with a decisive, bordering on dominant win, that is a statement no matter who you are, and especially if you're a team like the Kraken looking to bounce back after an iffy month of December. And it is probably because of that iffy month of December that I've seen a lot of people asking who, at the end of November, I think were feeling pretty good about the Kraken's chances of making the playoffs, now asking whether or not they're gonna make it. I know some people were asking about it in the stream tonight, which, if you joined for the stream, thank you again very much for joining, and if you didn't, there will be more of them the rest of the season. But honestly, coming into this game, and even still at this point, after a great game from the Kraken, I think it's probably a little bit better than a coin toss, but I'd call it 60-40. If over the next 45 games we see a little bit more of that team that we saw again for most of December, and especially the last two games of 2022, then the Kraken are going to have a hard time holding back teams like the Oilers and Flames to make the playoffs, and will probably end up getting past and missing out. But if we continue to see the team that we've seen so far in 2023 and saw in November, then they'll have no problem whatsoever making the playoffs and might even be able to make a run at winning the division. Of course, Vegas will also have to help by slowing down a little bit, but there's definitely a chance. And the Kraken are also certainly helped out by the fact that they still have games in hand over pretty much every team in the West, and also have gotten off to that good start to the season that already has them in a playoff spot right now. And also, certainly, the fact that nobody seems to be running away with playoff spots or divisions in the West at the moment, other than maybe Vegas. But basically, the West is wide open, and especially the Pacific Division. Now, if you're a regular here, I know this probably isn't the first time you're hearing me say this. In fact, I think I said some of it, or at least something to a similar effect, a game ago in the Edmonton video. The reason that I bring it up again is because after saying that I'd like to see some of that same team that did what they did in Edmonton throughout the rest of the season, well, they played a eerily similar game here in Toronto. The first period gets off to a not great start for the Kraken. It's pretty much all Maple Leafs, just like it was pretty much all Oilers for the first 10 minutes. But the Kraken, thanks to keeping the puck to the outside and defense that, while it wasn't great at keeping the puck out of their own end, was good at least keeping the puck while it was in their end to the outside. Doesn't allow too many high danger scoring chances. They allow some shots on goal, but nothing that Jones can't handle. And they're able to, thanks to some, at least last minute good defense, escape those first 10 minutes of Toronto pressure without letting in a goal. And happily, at least for Kraken fans anyway, this time all this pressure in the first half of a first period from the opposing team doesn't lead to a power play that they immediately score on, which is a good thing because coming into this game, it did seem like it was going to be a key once again for the Kraken to stay off of special teams. Yes, it would be nice if they could get a couple power plays and not get any for the opponent, but they will very happily take no power plays at all rather than, say, 2 or 3 for each side the way things have been going. And not only are they able to keep 10 skaters out on the ice, 5 for each team, but the Kraken are able to maybe not turn momentum in their favor, but at least even things out through the back half of the first and get to the first intermission with the score still tied at 0. Although that having been said, they do eventually allow the Maple Leafs to get a power play with a minute and a half left. Fortunately, though, they are able to kill off that minute and a half of power play into the first intermission, really without too much trouble. And then to start out the second, while Toronto still does have, I think it was 24 seconds of power play, the Kraken actually end up getting the better scoring chance out of it, and they get it right away as Wennberg gets set loose on a nice bounce pass from Gord, driving at the net on a partial breakaway, gets the shot off, but just quite isn't able to get it through the 5-hole of Murray. He makes the save, and then right back the other way. This time Toronto is able to get a scoring chance, and then as the power play ends, a couple more scoring chances, which doesn't lead to a goal, but does end up leading quickly to another power play. Once again, though, this new look penalty kill for the Kraken comes up big, not just killing off a second power play in a short period of time, but also, for a second time, not allowing that many chances on net and not really letting the Leafs get all that comfortable in the offensive end. So for a team that coming into this game was a decided 31st in the league on the kill, against a Maple Leafs team that, while they're not as dangerous as the Oilers power play that the Kraken just faced, is still 9th in the league, coming in with a 75% scoring rate. So to go 2 for 2 on the kill is a pretty big deal. And special teams wise, things only get better as the Kraken get the next power play just a couple minutes later, and this time they score on it, unlike what the Leafs are able to do, as once again, it's that second unit with Eeli Tolvanen out there that wheel the puck around the outside, McCann getting it up to Dunn, Dunn waiting a second and then passing it down to Tolvanen, who's ready for the one-timer, and he fires that laser of a shot into the back of the net. I would have called it a bullet, but lasers are faster, and for the second time in as many tries, and the second time in 3 games, Tolvanen finds the back of the net on the short side to give the Kraken the 1-0 lead. So for Tolvanen, it might not be 3 goals in 3 games like what Sprong did last year when joining the Kraken, but it is 3 points in his first 3 games, as he continues to show why the Kraken spent a waiver claim on him. Unfortunately, it's at this point that the Kraken get a little bit too carried away, having maybe a little bit too much fun on special teams, finally finding success with both units. And it doesn't take too much long after the Kraken take this 1-0 lead from Tolvanen that Gord ends up going to the box on a double minor. Now that having been said, it doesn't happen right away as he ends up catching, I don't know who it was, but someone up high with a high stick that does draw blood, and well, they didn't call it right away. Eventually, as I think it was Sandin, now that I think about it, goes over to the bench holding his face. The play is blown dead, and the officials come together, and out of all of it, decide that Gord is going to get the double minor, which was the right call, but it was kind of frustrating because earlier on in the game, I think it was Alexiak, or no, actually, was it Alexiak? Yes, it was Alexiak who got hit up high, I think in the first period by Austin Matthews. That wasn't caught, even though it was right in front of an official. They didn't bother to talk about it or anything, which Alexiak, I guess, didn't draw blood or wasn't hurt enough for them to stop play for him. So maybe that's why they didn't call it. Either way, it was kind of frustrating that they got that call wrong and then took their time to get this call right. I mean, maybe you can look at it as 2 wrongs don't make a right, but from a fan of one of the 2 teams standpoint, it did seem a little unfair. Again, though, fair or not, it was the right call in the end here on Gord. And it does send the Kraken now to back-to-back minors, having killed off pretty close to back-to-back minors already. And while they do get close to killing this one off, they get the first 3 minutes of it killed off. Eventually, though, just as the power play clock ticks under a minute on the 4 minutes of power play for the Leafs, it's Marner who fires off a shot. Actually, I don't really think it was a shot. I think he was looking for a tip the whole way towards Tavares right in front of the net, with Bunting actually right behind him. It's a double screen in front of Jones, who has really no chance, as Tavares' tip goes between his legs, between Bunting's legs behind him, and between Jones' legs behind both of them to tie the game up at 1. Again, not much of a chance for Jones here, just a nice play between Marner and Tavares. And just like that, the Kraken tempt fate one too many times, and it cost them. But it doesn't cost them for very long. As they say, screening in front of a goaltender, you say, 2 can play at that game. 14 seconds later, the Kraken into the offensive zone off the faceoff. There's a puck battle along the boards that somehow squirts out to Dunn, and from up high above the faceoff circle, he fires off a shot just as Bjorkstrand is taking the Kraken's old friend in Mark Giordano, their captain from last season, in front of the net, screening Murray, and the puck gets past both of them, past Murray, bouncing off of his pad on the glove side and into the back of the net to give the Kraken the 2-1 lead. Again, 14 seconds after that tying goal on the power play for Toronto. Then just a few minutes later, once again it's done, this time behind his own net, who puts the puck up along the boards to Schwartz. Schwartz finds from a few feet inside the Kraken zone still, McCann getting loose in the neutral zone. At center ice, it's McCann wide open on a break. He skates it in and buries it into the back of the net, once again on the glove side of Murray, and it's 3-1 Kraken. And for Leaf legend Jared McCann, it's his still team-leading 18th of the season, having been the Kraken selection from the Toronto Maple Leafs in the expansion draft. After being traded to the Maple Leafs, I think it was 2, maybe 3 days before. So again, McCann, an absolute legend in Toronto, and in his return, or like a second return after having been selected by the Kraken, he scores on them, extending the Kraken lead and giving them their third goal now in the period. It wouldn't be their last though, as they continue to press for more over the next few minutes, and eventually with just a couple minutes left in the second period, they get it. This time it's first actually Jordan Eberle who takes a shot from the slot. Doesn't get much of it at all. I'm not sure if he broke his stick or just flubbed on the shot. Either way, it kind of trickles through the slot right to Matty Beniers, who picks it up, skates a few feet away, then whips around 180 and fires off a shot through Gio's legs, through Murray's legs, and into the back of the net to give the Kraken the 4-1 lead. And unfortunately, well, it is good for the Kraken that they get their fourth goal of the game, the second period in a row that they've gotten 4 goals in a second period. But it does come for a third time at the expense of their old captain in Mark Giordano, who had the first goal from Tolvanen, I think, glance off of him and into the back of the net, then also is part of the screen that allows the second goal to go in, and now has this one go between his legs before going through his goaltender's legs. So yeah, not a particularly good night for the old captain, but it is a good night for the Kraken, as they get, for, again, the second game in a row, a period where they score 4 and their opponent only scores 1. Just like what they did in Edmonton. And as we do get to the end of the second, with the score still 4-1, it has continued to be a game much like we saw against the Oilers. So now the question is, in the third period, will the Kraken kind of just turtle up like they did in Edmonton, which granted did work, but didn't necessarily make that feel like the safest 4-2 lead ever until they got the empty netter? Or will they be able to continue to press and keep their foot down in this third period? And the answer is kind of a little bit of both. They definitely look like they're playing more defense first and continue to play very well in defensive end, allowing really nothing to the inside and keeping the puck to the outside when Toronto was in that end of the ice. They were also, unlike in Edmonton, getting their chances back at the other end. Where in Edmonton, I think they only ended up getting like 3 shots on goal or maybe 4 in the third period. In this one, they not only equaled, but I think actually surpassed the number of shots that Toronto had, winning this third period as far as shots on goal are concerned, and also winning it as far as actual goals are concerned. And wouldn't you know it, but for a final time as a similarity to that game in Edmonton a couple nights ago, the lone goal in this third period goes for Alex Wennberg. Though this time, he didn't need an empty net to find the back of it. As it comes 3 minutes into the third, it's a 2-on-1 chance for Gord and Wennberg, and, well, to be honest in this situation, I kind of think I'd rather see Gord take the shot as he has the puck on his forehand settled down for him. Instead, he goes for the pass to Wennberg, who's then on the backhand. Either way, Wennberg gets the shot off, not really on goal, but enough on goal. As he takes the backhand shot, it's going well wide, but Murray, who's coming across to try and block the shot, ends up having it go off of the paddle of his stick, between his legs, and into the back of the net, to give the Kraken their 5th goal of the game, and what would end up being the final goal of the game, to give the Kraken that 5-1 lead. It's, well, as Steve Dangle would say, a dang it for Murray, and this whole game ends up being a bit of a dang it for the Leafs. Great for the Kraken, though. The rest of the third period from here really doesn't end up going much of anywhere. Both teams trade chances, but there aren't too many more high danger scoring ones, and I guess as one more similarity, there is a late, though ultimately meaningless power play for the Maple Leafs. This one doesn't come in the final minutes of the game, but it does come in the last kind of few minutes. Either way, the Kraken kill that one off to improve their penalty kill stats and do win this one 5-1. Once again, a game that feels very similar to the one in Edmonton, but also in a lot of ways a little bit better. Not only because it's a better team that they beat, but also because it did just kind of feel like a more complete, and especially in the third period, more full 60-minute well-played game by the Kraken. I mean, the first 10 minutes could have had a little bit more offense for Seattle, but, I mean, they kept it out of their own net. So, there you go. Honestly, I don't know what more there is to say about this game. I guess I should mention that Jones had another fantastic game for the Kraken. That's 3 in a row very good games for Jones after coming in relief of Grubauer in the not so good game against the Oilers, which even for Jones really didn't go all that well. Either way, it has been a defensive resurgence in front of him that while Jones was fantastic, stopping 26 of 27 shots, again, he wasn't challenged all that much. Really only 3, maybe 4 good scoring chances for Toronto, one of which they kind of flubbed on themselves. The best scoring chance with the best save that he ends up making coming against Austin Matthews somewhere in the middle of the second. And honestly, even that one was a good chance turned into a great chance because of the ability of Matthews to score goals. It's one where he's standing in the high slot waiting for a one-timer. He's got his stick raised up in the air. And as the pass comes to him, he fakes like he's going to take that one-timer, which gets Dunn, who's in front of him, to go down on a knee to get the block shot. Instead, Matthews doesn't go for the one-timer, takes the puck a couple quick handles, picks his spot, takes his shot. It's a very nice shot, but Jones comes up with the nice glove save and continued to make saves throughout the rest of the game. A lot of them were kind of just ones that, while there were decent scoring chances around the net, he was just in the right place at the right time, which is still part of goaltending, but didn't make it look like it was all that hard that he ended up having to work. Let me know if you think that makes any sense, but basically with Jones, he definitely has a bit of an economy of movement type of approach at goaltending, which means that he sticks usually around his crease and kind of just moves slowly from one side to the other, or as necessary anyway. And in this case, it allowed him to be in the right place at the right time to have a lot of pucks just kind of go off of him. Again, like I said, doesn't make for highlight reel saves, but it does save the puck, which is ultimately all you need. Of course, where that can sometimes get him into trouble is with the odd man rushes or crossing passes and stuff like that, as we've seen in the past. But again, the Kraken defense was doing a very good job of shutting down the center of the ice and not allowing much of that to happen, which allowed Jones to do his job well. Aside from that, before we get into the Kraken 3 stars, one more time, it was good to see a couple of old faces. Obviously, the old captain Mark Giordano, even if he didn't have the best night ever, but also Calle Jarnkrok, who, at least to me, was one of my favorite kind of underrated players of the Kraken last season, and ultimately ends up getting traded early on during trade season to the Calgary Flames, and at least for what that's worth, even though he had not much to say about the trade itself, the Kraken definitely got the better of that trade than the Flames did, and especially when you're trading with a division opponent, that's all you can really ask for. Of course, part of that was because Jarnkrok didn't have a great time in Calgary, but he's been doing pretty well in Toronto when he's been healthy. And he did have one little dust up in front of the Kraken net with actually Adam Larsson, where the two of them had a little bit of a push and shove. And then the camera zooms in on them, and they kind of give each other a kind of wry little smile and back off, as if to show that, again, they're just a couple of friends who did spend most of last season together, having a little bit of fun. There was another dust up, though, this time involving Gio and Burakovsky. Those two have never played together, and I didn't look like that was quite as friendly as the one in front of the net between Larsson and Jarnkrok, but it really didn't lead to much of anything, so yeah, just I think Gio may be being a little bit frustrated with how that game went for him. And that does now bring us on to the Kraken 3 stars, where if you were watching the stream towards the end when I was talking about 3 stars after the game concluded, I am actually going to go with a slight change up here from what I said in the stream. I am still sticking with Dunn as the first star, a goal and 2 assists in this game, and continues to play fantastic for the Kraken and really show for anybody that's been watching Seattle why they went with Dunn rather than Tarasenko in the expansion draft. Not that Tarasenko wouldn't have been potentially a good pick, but he would have commanded a little bit more cap space, and Dunn's been fantastic on the back end and also is younger and will be with the team longer. As far as a second star, this is where things are going to change up a little bit. I'm actually going to go with Alex Wennberg instead of Larsson, who I said in the stream. Larsson still had a great game, but Wennberg, I felt, also had a good game and would have been, for a second time in a row, an honorable mention. So this one's a bit of he almost had a star in the last game, and with these 2 games combined, I kind of felt like he deserves to have one in one of the 2 games. So Wennberg with that 5th goal, it doesn't end up mattering that much, but he had a really good game at both ends of the ice. Again, a big part of that penalty kill that has been, well, great in these last 3 games after being the opposite for most of the rest of the season. And then the 3rd star, Matty Beniers, who I haven't mentioned up till this point, but obviously he gets his 13th goal of the season and also gets named the 2nd ever Kraken All-Star, as he'll be representing Seattle at the All-Star game this season. No, I don't think it's too likely Seattle gets another one. Burakovsky and McCann, maybe even Eberle would be options, but with the Kraken especially scoring by committee, it doesn't really open up for too many guys that show up as far as overall league stats are concerned. So for Beniers, with him being the biggest story in Seattle, leading the Calder race and all that, it makes sense that he would be the guy that goes. It's exciting for him in his rookie season to go to the All-Star game, and it'll be fun to see what he's able to do there and which one of those fun competitions he ends up being a part of. And also, as an honorable mention, I do want to say that McCann had a very good game. He gets named the second star officially, but again, I felt like Beniers getting the All-Star nod as well as a goal was certainly worthy. And again, I wanted to get Wennberg a star at least in one of these two games where he's played really well and been a big part of the penalty kill, even if he isn't getting the same points production necessarily that some of his teammates are. Finally, before we close things out, I do also want to mention from the World Juniors, it's the end of the World Juniors now, obviously, with both the medal games happening. Shane Wright finishes the World Juniors with 7 points in 7 games, 4 goals and 3 assists. Not quite the same number of points as the 23 points scored by his teammate Connor Bedard. I mean, that guy's going to be a problem wherever he goes, so please just keep him out of San Jose or Anaheim. That's all I'm really asking. Still, though, for Wright, a respectable showing at the World Juniors with the point per game and captaining the gold medal team. Plus, he did also have a goal in the gold medal game, so that certainly helps. And also, although his team didn't come away with the medal, I did also want to mention Jani Nyman, another one of the Kraken prospects, the second round pick, or one of the second round picks in this last draft for Team Finland. He comes away with 3 points, 2 goals, and an assist in 5 games, and has had a pretty good season over in Finland. So, yeah, good all-around World Junior Championship for the 2 Kraken players that were there, or Kraken prospects that were there, 1 Kraken player. We'll have to see whether or not Shane Wright gets back in the lineup as he comes back to the team in one of these next 2 games, with the team in Ottawa and then in Montreal in the next 2. So with Shane already being over in that area for the World Junior Championship, he should be able to join up with the team without too much trouble. Considering the 4th line are the guys that keep scoring in Tolvanen, Sprong, Donato, and even Geeky, it's going to be tough to find a way for Wright to get back in the lineup, and once he's in there, he's going to have to make sure that he earns a spot staying there. Anyway, that's for the future. As for now, the Kraken get another fantastic win, 3 in a row, 3 decisive wins in a row, and this road trip is off to a very good start, and they can continue that in Ottawa and then Montreal in these next 2 games. Until then, if you have made it to this point, let me know what you thought of this game down in the comment section below, who your 3 stars would be, what you thought of the World Junior Championship, or just thoughts in general as the Kraken continue this undefeated run into 2023. Knock on wood real quick. If you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below to support the channel. Again, if you were around for the stream, thank you very much for joining for that as well. We'll be doing more of those. And until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other. God bless, and go Kraken.